take him by the neck.
Yeah.
All of that to say, and thank you for letting me just take over for that moment about comedy. And you knew Jeannie almost, y'all were so connected and joined at the hip and the heart. And she always, and Jason Hewlett said this, they'd say, Jeannie, can you speak? You're just a humorist. Don't even say that, right? You can't speak on leadership. Oh yeah, there's humor in leadership. Okay, well, we have the janitorial staff coming in. They like to learn about clean techniques. Oh, you got to have humor there too. I mean, anything she did, it was the blanket of humor. Yeah. So reminisce with me a little bit. And I know you're the one that called me and told me that they had found Jeannie graduated. And I was so devastated, but I would love to hear of your memories of Jeannie and thoughts to share with everybody. People love this, is, of course, Jeannie's fan base. A lot of these folks that are listening.
Good. Yeah. Yeah. I was on her show. I know at least once, maybe twice, I think. And so maybe some of the people who are listening or watching this have heard me before, but you're right. I got to know her really well. I knew Jeannie actually before I got into NSA because there had been a group of speakers meeting at a Holiday Inn in Charlotte, right where Carowinds is now, back in the late 70s and before I joined NSA. And it was Jeannie, and I remember Nito was in that group, and there were 4 or 5 others, maybe a half dozen or so speakers, and that would meet to talk about speaking. Ty Boyd was in that group, and matter of fact, Ty, I love that guy. I'm going to talk about Jeannie, but I'll tell you real quick about Ty. Early on, we all did a little showcase of what we talked about, of our talk. And I remember doing one, and there were probably, I don't know, just a few people in the room. And Ty Boyd stood up and said, Al, there are 3 things you have to have for a perfect speech. He said, 1, you have to have a great audience, a wonderful bunch of people who are there to hear you and who're there to laugh or hear whatever message you may have. And the room needs to be packed. Secondly, you got to have a great venue, a resort or a good hotel or something. And the third thing is you got to have a speaker to have something, worth hearing. He said, I've never had all 3 of those working for me, but now that I got your material. And so I've never forgotten that about Ty. But that's when I met Jeannie then and had got to know her, of course, through NSA. And Jeannie and I guess because of our maybe knowing each other, the very first convention I went to in '83 out in San Francisco, she called me and she said, we're having a thing called Humor Extravaganza, and it's going to be like 2 hours. We're going to have about a 30-minute break in between. And she said, have you ever been a clown? I said, not officially. She said, well, would you be? I said, yeah, I'll do it. I didn't hesitate. I said, sure, I'll be glad to do it. I'll be a clown. Oh, lady on my staff made me a clown outfit. I got a big red nose, got a gold wig, had the big red shoes. I learned how to juggle. I learned how to make animal out of balloons. But the problem was, she said, we want you and a couple others to be out at the break for that 30 minutes doing clown stuff. And the clowns don't talk. So my first job in NSA, I couldn't say a word. I had a little stiff leash. It didn't have a dog on it, but it looked like it had a dog. I could walk around, but I learned how to do all that because my attitude was, yeah, I'll do whatever needs to be done. And I've told a lot of new speakers that if NSA says, would you do so and so? Go, yeah. Don't even think about it. Don't hesitate. If you don't know how to do it, figure it out. So I didn't know how to be a clown. But matter of fact, it's funny. After Margaret and I got married 26 years ago, she was running around the closet and found those big red shoes and that big wig. And she's going, what in the world have I married? And she had no clue. But anyway, but the point is, that's, she and I were close enough for her to ask me to do that. She was actually in charge of part of that convention. And the other thing she did have me do, she had me pray at one of the luncheons. So I did get a chance to speak a little bit, but it was just me and God. The rest of them just happened to be listening in. So, I loved her dearly. We had a lot of fun at each other's houses. And Jeannie would, we were part of Platform Professionals. And I remember when Platform Professionals was founded by a guy named Newt Hilscher out of Louisiana. He'd been dead 25, 30 years now. But he and Doc Blakely and Joe Griffith had gotten together and had formed Platform Professionals. They'd gotten Robert involved with it. And that was just a group who all did the same thing. They were all Southern humorists, and they would go speak. And knowing that group wouldn't have them back again the next year, they'd refer the others. And of course, they just keep cycling, platform professionals through an organization. And then they brought Jeannie on, and then sometime in the 80s, and then in 93, when I was president at my convention in Dallas, they all came to my suite, and I've got a plaque around here somewhere.
I was in that suite. I was in that suite. Yep.
Yep. Anyway, it says I got into, they invited me in to join platform professionals, and we worked. We had a couple of meetings every year. One of them was just to work on material. Another one was to work on marketing. And we developed a lot of stuff over the years. We had decks of cards at one time with all of our pictures on it. And
I remember that.
We mailed those out, and we had different brochures, and we had one website, and we had, but those meetings, Jeannie ran those meetings.
Yeah.
As you know, she was the best I've ever known in this business at developing material.
Yeah.
I mean, you could go into your utility room, bag up a bag of garbage, take it out, and put it in the back of your car to take to the dump, and she'd make a funny story out of that. Yeah. She could take something that was just so mundane and make it end up being hilarious. And so she'd make us come to these meetings. We had to have 3 lists, and one list was stories that we were using in our talks that were funny, but they weren't getting quite the response we thought they maybe should. So how could we beef them up a little bit? The second was stories that we had put together, maybe had written, had liked, but hadn't used them yet because we weren't really sure it wasn't. Sometimes some of the funniest stories are stories that you had to be there. It's not really something you can tell to a group. And the third list that you made us bring was a premise. I walk out of my house and stumble and fall down the stairs. What story can I make? And we'd actually build a complete story, none of which was true, just around that premise. And so, but we didn't take turns. And
that's good stuff.
I'd get, we'd work for 3 days in a row for several hours every day. By the time we got through, we were all brain dead, because the way it worked was I'd get 15 minutes. And during that 15 minutes, I had to decide which one of those 3 lists that I want to take something from. I would tell it to the group, and then they would focus all of their attention on making that story either better or creating a new story around that concept or idea. And then when it was through, I'd have all my notes, and we'd stop, go to the next person. They'd do, and we'd all focus on them and what they were doing. So it was one story at a time, and she just made us work so blooming hard. But it paid off, because my best stories that I've ever had speaking came out of those meetings that we had with platform professionals. So, but she just became a very close friend. We talked every week. I don't know how many years it seemed like, and it may not even been about speaking. It might have been about something with Elon or something with Beaver, her son, and who had all sorts of interesting things happen in his life, or something about us. And I remember when Margaret and I got married, how supportive she was of us. And matter of fact, the first time she met Margaret was, as you know, at an NSA convention in Anaheim, and you were there. And when y'all saw each other, it was kind of like out of place, because y'all had known each other before. But when Jeannie walked up, Jeannie's first comment to Margaret was, "Well, she doesn't look like a slut." And I never will forget that. But it was so typical of Jeannie that, she would always say the thing you didn't expect, which made it funny. And as a matter of fact, I had a picture of.
I was going to ask you if you sent that to me for the slide presentation.
I found a picture just yesterday that I was going to take when we got married, and that's us. So that's
that's you.
Shiny.
Yeah, I love that. Do you have the platform professional picture when you were invited to be in the group? I love that. I'll pause so you can find that. That's just. So I asked Al to please find that iconic picture that we shared at our luncheon a few years ago. Oh yeah, that's Al. Oh,
that's it. Oh, it's shiny. I know. I'm trying to get it where it doesn't have a glare on it.
Look at you and look at Jeannie. Oh,
I know.
Wow.
Yeah, that's back when I weighed about 450 pounds, and
I love that.
That's of course Jeannie's, beside me, as is Robert Henry. Yeah, on the other side. Beside Robert is Joe Griffith, and beside Jeannie is Doc Blakely. So, and that's back when I weighed 455 pounds.
Wasn't in that. I said Todd, but he wasn't in that. Yeah, wow.
No, I weighed about 455 pounds, and of course, in the mid 2000s, I lost about 200 pounds. That became part of my introduction, because now my introduction says, at the end of it, says, in the past few years, which have been about 15 or 16 now, Al's lost over 200 pounds, which he likes to refer to as his evil twin. And that gets me into some of my self-deprecating humor I use in the beginning of my, my talks about diets and about exercise and just crazy stuff.